Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. A little different episode. I got contacted by Shwe, a journalism student at Boston University, and I'm a former professor, so I enjoy talking to students. So we got into a conversation that went different directions than I thought. Thanks sponsors, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Suggs & Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. Thanks, Shwe, for your interesting take on the industry and trying to get a handle on it, and thanks for asking me to participate. Here it is.
I'm currently a grad student at BU. I also work as a reporter with a podcasting company, and I've just been doing some research around a story around baseball memorabilia. And I'm originally from India, and I only moved here in the past 2 years. And I'm in Boston, so obviously baseball is huge, and it's been a great introduction. But I did want to get a little bit more context of America's favorite pastimes.
The problem with baseball, the beauty and the problem is both the fact that baseball never needed to be marketed. Mm-hmm. And now it needs to be marketed in a crowded space, and they're not as good at the marketing as these other sports that have come on very strong. And so when I was a young boy, it just was expected. There wasn't really a lot of baseball on TV or anything, but it was what people were talking about. It was what was in the sports page of the newspaper, which people don't do newspapers anymore. So the way that baseball can get the attention of the American public and the world public needs to be more overt. It needs to be more active and not passive. Right. And so that's been the criticism of baseball, that they've been a little bit too passive to just say, hey, we are this great game. We're America's pastime. So you should go to the games, watch the games, love the game. And many people do. They're not failing. It's just that there's a feeling that the other sports have made great strides in ground. So good for them.
Absolutely. I think one of the things I noticed with baseball is the sense of nostalgia around it as well. And maybe that's where the card collecting and the memorabilia aspect of it fits into place. Would you say that nostalgia is...
It's nostalgia and nostalgia in advance because people have their memories of these great players from when they were younger that they'd heard about, and all the statistics that are in the sport of milestones and things like that. But the nostalgia in advance is interesting when these newer players that are in their 20s right now, brand new players, and they're being compared to the all-time greats. And it's always been a sport and a hobby of optimism. And so they're hoping that 50 years from now, these players right now will be nostalgically collect. Those would be the good old days.
I feel like as sport gets younger as well, there's this projection onto them.
Well, you need both. You need to be aware the legacy of the sport for many decades. And then these new players are carrying on in that regard. And that's why it's the fathers or the mothers teaching the children, boys and girls. It's probably 90% plus males, but there's more and more women, it seems, each year, and girls that are interested.
Absolutely. I feel like that's the best part about it.
Well, it's very inclusive. It's one of my missions in life is to make it more accessible, more intelligible. People can figure it out. Because if it's too complicated, and it is complicated, but if it's too complicated, then people throw up their hands and they say, I just could never understand it, so I'm going to do something else that I can wrap my arms around.
Yes, absolutely. One of the sports that I love and a big fan of is Formula One. And I feel like they've done a great job in introducing the sport through Netflix series and marketing it to make it like huge.
That's a marketing organization. Every square inch of the car and the driver's suit is got advertising on it. So everybody's pulling together to increase those impressions. And just recently, really in the last year, Formula One cards have really taken off.
I didn't even know that Formula One cards existed.
It might have been the hottest category in the last 12 months.
Okay. That is very interesting to know, Jim. But I did want to come back to your point of how certain sports have embraced technology. And I was scrolling on Twitter today and I saw almost every sport has a sponsor from NFTs or from crypto and things like that. And I feel like memorabilia also has slowly evolved into these tiny digital images on your laptop called NFTs. As how you've seen that evolution, are they the same? Do you think the physical, tangible baseball memorabilia world is still thriving and alive?
I'm of the generation that thinks they're not the same, but of the younger generation, they don't always bring their physical cards with them to show their friends, but they always have their phone, and they're basically showing a picture of a picture.
Yeah.
And so that's a picture of a card or a picture of a NFT that they have on their mobile device. So that I think I'm of the old generation, old guard. But all the leagues, all the players, everybody is interested in NFTs because other than building the infrastructure, it's zero cost of goods sold. It's just a digital copy of something. It's not the something, it's the digital copy of something. And you can make more copies. Again, it's be authorized and they're numbered and blockchain, chain of custody, all that stuff. So there's some safeguards there, but who wouldn't want to sell something that costs nothing to produce? It's the original alchemy.
Absolutely. But tell me a little bit more about the old guard, Jim. What's your favorite part about collecting? What's kept you in it for so long? I think, what's your favorite memory associated with it from all of these years?
Well, it's like having children. You can't have a favorite child. It's just the one you're with. But basically, the situation with the hobby is there's a search, there's a quest for something, and it could be something what you're looking for, or you don't know what you're looking for. So many of the things, when I've gone to some of these big shows and search around, I'll see something I've never seen before. I didn't know that I'd never seen it till I saw it. And I thought, and then I could decide, do I want to buy it? Or I guess you could take a picture of it, or you could just pass it by. But I think at this point, it's hard to buy everything because things are so expensive. But collectors like to go on a quest, I think. If you're really a collector, if you're an investor, you're just trying to buy low and sell high. Or more recently, it's buy high and sell higher. That's really what they've done. They want to find something that's hot and assume that we're going to be in a bull market for a little bit longer and then be able to sell for more. And that's worked mostly for the last few years, surprisingly through COVID.
Yeah. I'm very surprised by that. I was curious how the whole process works, Jim, day to day. Do most of these transactions take place online? I see baseball stores around. Is that still a thing where you go in and pick up a card?
I think the physical connection with another collector is always important, but I think it's tipped to where most of the sales in our industry are through digital platforms. There's sales on Facebook and Instagram, and eBay is probably the largest retailer, if you could call them a retailer, but providing that service.
Right.
So I think it's considerably more than half. But this other less than half is still very necessary because they add to the glue of why people come back. So most people I know do some blend. They'll have their favorite sites they visit online, and then they'll have certain shows or card shops that they would go to because there's a lot of fellowship involved of just wanting to be around your tribe, your clan, your group.
Yeah. Yes. I was doing a little bit of research into baseball cards and just cards, the whole industry, baseball memorabilia, the news over the past few years. I did notice a lot of forgery and fraud that comes with this. I feel like if you do a lot of the sales online, physically you have a little bit more chance to inspect it, I guess. I was curious, how much is fraud part of it and you just have to be careful, or how much does that kind of weigh in?
You don't have to be careful if it's something that's not very expensive. But if it is expensive, you need to be careful. It's there's a very small chance. It's still they're isolated occurrences, but they get a lot of publicity. If you find out something has been counterfeited or switched out in some way and in many cases it's fraud. Shwe, I think when people do bad things, they should be punished, and they should not just make restitution. There's beyond that. You can't say, I'm sorry, here's your money back. No, if you tried to defraud me, there should be a further, especially when they did it intentionally. If it's unknowing, hey, I sold you this card, I didn't realize it was not real. So the other thing people like is, in a broad sense, it's gambling. But I think the uncertainty of buying a box of cards or participating in a break and not knowing what you're going to get, it's the thrill, not just of the chase, but the thrill of, I don't know what I'm going to get. It's the old Easter egg hunts. You don't know what you're going to get inside when you open it up. And so when we had COVID and people stayed inside, they still had this desire to, again, I don't think this is your major, but to gamify their life. And so that sounds like gambling, but it's really gamifying it, that they want to do something where there's some uncertainty, where they can enjoy that uncertainty. And if they open up a pack of cards, they might get something good, they might not. But they enjoy that, so it's gambling. But I look at it more benign, that it's gamifying it. Again, they're not professional gamblers. They're not in any kind of organized crime gambler. But they like the uncertainty of, maybe I'll get something great and maybe I won't. And the other thing that's been really interesting is that it's wired just like Las Vegas or any place where you go gambling, that most people lose. But there's a few big winners that encourage the others, like the state lottery. Most people, in fact, lose big. You expect the expectation, 50 cents of the dollar is taken off the top to provide for schools or something. It goes for a good cause. So one person's going to get rich and the other 999 are going to lose. But people have that eternal optimism. And I think collectors are optimists. I don't know that it's gambling, except in the benign sense, as I'm saying. I think it's a gamifying of our culture, that this uncertainty, and unfortunately, everybody thinks they have an edge when they don't. They don't understand. My field is statistics. If you gamble against somebody 3 times in a row and you lose each time, what is likely to happen the 4th time? You're probably going to lose again. But they think, oh, I'm overdue now. Okay, but that's not the way the trials are either independent, in which case, you still have a 50-50 chance or the same chance. But trials are not always independent, and and the odds are not well understood by both parties. And so that's not to put a sour note on it, but again, you just can't think, I'm overdue, because you're not overdue. What's in the pack is in the pack. It doesn't know whether you've had disappointment before or you've had a bad day. You pay your money, you take your chances. The expectation in a mathematical sense is negative, but there's enough people that have a positive experience that brag about it, flex about it, crow about it, put it all. You don't go on your social media and talk about how much money you lost when you're gambling. You only talk about the time that you really won. And same thing with cards. So, and you can have a huge winner, life-changing winners for some of them.
As you said, I think those are the ones making the headlines all the time. So it's just easy to get caught up in that. And it's also, I think, very intrinsically almost like an American dream to have that thing of, I'm going to get it the next time. Is it
distinctly American or even is it first world? I don't know. I think that you have a situation, most people would love to better themselves, their situation, or make a better situation for their kids. But as we've said, the analogy to lottery tickets, that's not the way. Many cultures are better about saving. And not saving cards, but saving money. Because I hope America hasn't fully exported a consumer culture to the rest of the world. Because there's excess consumerism. And so then you have cards, which are consumable, but are collectible. And so you think, that doesn't count. I'm investing in cards. And that's, most people, if they're investing in cards, it ought to be after they have a savings account that allows for them to be out of work for some period of time. And then they have some traditional investments that are more, they might be more boring, but they would still be more liquid if there's a problem.
I feel like that's the pragmatic outlook. But I remember when I first came here, the first place, Costco, and I was shocked. I've never seen anything like that before, but I think that just goes back to America.
And everything is a deal in Costco.
It's also so big. Why do people want such big things? I just want one packet of chips, which is small.
No, you can't do that. What they do is everything is half price at Costco, but everything is twice the quantity that you want or need. And so you wind up paying the same amount. You just have excess product.